I bet growing up, no matter whether you were rich or poor, grew up in the church or not, no matter where you grew up, you were taught to share. You were taught to share. In sharing, you were taught to take your toys that your parents bought for you and your games, and you were taught that whenever you have company and someone comes over, that you share your toys with them, you share your video game with them, you share your stuff, right? Even when you go to school, you may have went to a school where you were given a list of school supplies, your parents bought the school supplies, and then when you got to school, you were kind of encouraged to share your crayons, share your paper, share this, share that, to make sure everybody had some. You may even been in a situation where someone shared with you. It was about a community. The goal was to make sure everybody had something. And being an adult, you probably were taught to focus on the organization, focus on the class, focus on the church. You probably grew up in church. We're taught about altruism, about giving to others, do unto others as you would want others to do unto you. All about giving and giving and giving. I'm going to tell you why that's not a good way to be. And let me explain. As humans, we come in this world and we are born selfish. We are born inherently bad people, and we have to be taught civility, manners. We have to be taught all the aspects of caring about someone else. We have to learn what it means to be civil, learn what it means to be in society, and to be nice and kind and courteous. We have to be trained and taught to be all those things. It's good for society. It's good for the collective. It's good for the group. But what ends up happening is you still have some people who want to take advantage of others in a negative way. They will cause harm to others. They will cheat people out of stuff, lie, steal. They'll do a bunch of selfish acts that are negative. We usually associate greed, selfishness, and passion with negative aspects because most of the stuff that we hear about and know about are where people are doing those things for negative reasons. Or we're told that yes, you might be real successful as a business person or real successful in your company, but you're successful, but you probably had to do people wrong in order to get where you are. We're constantly bombarded, in my opinion, we're constantly bombarded with different ideas that what we're doing is not for the greater good, or the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few and the one. We're constantly hit with stuff like that, where it's not a social norm to only think of yourself. The reason why being trained with altruism, collectivism, where caring for others just as much as you care for yourself doesn't work, or we shouldn't adopt that, is because you're always going to have situations where you go into an environment and there's a cool kids table, or there's the in crowd. It doesn't matter how altruistic you are, how compassionate you are, how nice you are, how good you dress, how well you treat people. There's always going to be a few people who want to control others. And you can tell they want to control others based off of their answers when you ask them questions. Also, you can tell by what they do and not what they say. The last way you can tell that you're dealing with an environment where you have to put yourself first, which is everywhere, is because you're going to have a cool kids table. What is the cool kids table? Maybe when you were in school, there wasn't a cool kids actual table, or there wasn't a clique or in crowd or the cool kids or the popular people. Maybe you were part of the cool kids, who knows? But the whole aspect of the cool kids, it's about being exclusive. People having somewhat a perceived strength in numbers, and they're working together to go against other people. So they have this cool kids table where they work together, whereas everyone else is working individually and at an advantage. Well, the cool kids, they have the numbers and they're able to move and be powerful with their numbers. It's good to be a part of the cool kids table, to be accepted, to be wanted, to be involved in something. But you have to understand that the thing about the cool kids table is the cool kids or the clique or the group, there's always someone controlling it. It just has to be, because if not, then people are going to do what they want to do. And that's the secret sauce, is control. And usually that control comes from one person or a few people controlling the others. That's how you are able to relegate the herd. So while you're on the outside looking in, it looks like the cool kids table or the cool kids or Scooby and the gang are really doing really great. If you're on the inside, you see it's a whole bunch of chaos. From the outside, it looks like it's organized, but on the inside, it's usually chaos. The reason why it's normally chaos is because there's always someone trying to control another person. Don't focus on the cool kids table. Don't focus on the group or the gang or the whatever. If people are going off and having little secret conversations, don't worry about them. They're having the secret conversations because they don't want you to know their strategy. They don't want you to know the answer. Kind of going back to where I said, when you ask someone a question, based off their answer will tell you exactly what they want. Well, they're going away having these little secret phone calls, secret meetings, secret conversations, one-on-ones, all this little secret sauce stuff when it comes to the organization, because they feel that if you know the strategy, then you can stop them or maybe even compete with them. But just know that despite whatever you see from the outside looking in, they're going through turmoil. That's why we have to focus on putting ourselves first. Your self-interest should support your selfish and greed and everything you need for you to be prosperous. The only obligation you have is to your children and your significant other. If you have either one. If you don't have either one, then your obligations to yourself. You have to selfishly understand, okay, what do I want? When you interact with people, their self-interest has to support your self-interest. That way, together you can have a shared interest. And with that shared interest amongst a bunch of people, then you can not only do what will be in the best interest of others who you're aligning yourself with, but yourself. So the reason why this is different than the cool kids table or the clique or the group is because the clique and the group, they're going to say they have clique and group goals, but when you ask them questions, the answers they give you have nothing to do with the clique or the group. That's usually a sign that you're dealing with a cool kids table, or you're dealing with a gang, or you're dealing with something that you don't want to be a part of. The difference between people who are individualists coming together and forming like a cooperative, as opposed to some people who have a cool kids table or a gang or an in crowd, is that the in crowd is an in crowd because they don't want people involved no matter what your self-interest is. They're focused on status, biology, they're focused on stuff that's not going to really help them prosper. And they're going to usually fight each other. When it comes to groups that focus on status, looking cool, we all got to stick together, when they're focused on people, it's always going to be a power struggle and constant turmoil. When you align yourself with others who are selfish and they have their own individual goals, and their goals are clearly laid out, you know exactly what this person wants, they know what you want, then you have a cooperative where it's not an in crowd, it's just more of, I'm with you while you're good for business, my business. Once you're no longer good for me, I'm out. And that's a good thing. We have to embrace it. It doesn't make sense to want to see something do well that you don't own. Because if you owned it, that's a step above individualism as an individual ownership. If you own the organization. And if you got a bunch of people in the organization you own who want to see your organization do great, outstanding, I will take it. However, if you're in the organization, in the group, and you don't own or control it, you putting 100% into the group you don't own and you don't control, it's just not going to go well for you. It's possible it could go well, but usually it doesn't. It's going to be communicated to you that, yeah, you're in the in crowd, you're in the clique, but there's a clique within the clique. So even though we're going off having the secret phone calls, secret meetings in the secret rooms, we're having secret meetings where you're not invited. That's the whole thing, is because information is power and people will try to keep you from information and strategy so they can get ahead. But it's better to have your own self-interest and to let people know exactly what your goals are and what you want, so that when they do have secret meetings, if they decide to have them, or they do decide to interact with you, they know exactly what you want individually. If they decide to do something that infringes on your individual goals, you'll just be out. Your only obligations to your children and your significant other. When you hear people say something like, we're starting a family with this company, with this organization, your first thought should be, well, wait a minute. Do you have a family? Are you putting me on the same level as your actual family? That's usually a sign that it's not a good situation, because if someone has a wife and they tell you that I care about you like family, it's implied they care about you like they care about your wife. And if they say, if you ask them about it, they're like, oh, well, no, it's different because, and then the answer doesn't make sense. That kind of goes back to what I was saying as far as someone's answer will let you know exactly what's going on, especially if they start talking at you and ramming stuff down your throat as far as an answer. It shouldn't be a situation where you consider someone on the same level as children and significant other. Now you have a problem, because usually this is a sign that you may be dealing with people who are drinking the Kool-Aid, a little cult, a little gang. Sooner or later, they're going to want you to sacrifice for the group or for the family or for the organization to prosper. They're going to want you to sacrifice. Working holidays, working during your kids' sports games. They're going to be asking you to do stuff that you're not comfortable with. Your individual goals and wants are being put to the wayside for the collective, for collectivism. That's why you have to put yourself first. And you have to selfishly communicate, hey, I'm here, it's good for business, but as soon as things don't support my self-interest, I gotta go. Once you start to circumvent your own self-interest, now the group is winning, but you're not. And now someone will say, well, if the business does great, if for example, if Bank of America blows up, we all blow up, yay! No. If Bank of America blows up, my individual job is going to be my job. If the church grows, we all grow. Yay! Spear fingers, right? But that's not the case, because just because the church is adding more to its property as far as structure doesn't mean that I'm going to benefit, because I don't. You have an extra place to sit, but you don't own or control the church. The group, the organization, the company blowing up doesn't help you out at all. They could say, well, you can get a raise or a promotion. Until you get that raise and that promotion, it doesn't benefit you. All it is a promise. They can promise you the moon and the stars, but what do you actually have? You got to actually have it. If you don't have it, it's a bunch of, going back to a previous video, there's a whole bunch of promises made, but not promises kept. So they're making all these promises, or they're not keeping it. So until they keep their promise and you get it and you keep it, you can't even go off of what they say. You got to go off what they do. It's really simple. So that's why it's dangerous when it comes to the cool kids table, the in crowd, is because if you're on the inside, it's more than likely that someone's controlling others and they don't care about your individual wants. They'll say they care, but they really don't, because they're focused on the group that they control. So that's why we have to embrace individualism. Whenever I talk to people about being selfish and greedy, only being concerned for your children and significant other, people look at me like, yeah, you should always care about your children and significant other, but what about everybody else? And it's just like, well, what do you want me to say? Why are you not concerned for yourself? Well, we gotta stick together. What are we sticking together to do? Well, we're going against them. Us versus them. When they start talking about us versus them, we're stronger together, strength in numbers, and they're not focused on the individuals being strong, which would make the group strong. They're really focusing on the strong carrying the weak. And strong people don't need weak people to survive. It's a very tough conversation, because most of the stuff that I've been saying unprograms or goes against everything that's taught. Because usually you're going to be living in a society that needs you to sacrifice yourself so society prospers. For example, let's say going to Bank of America. Okay, I'm always picking on Bank of America and Walmart. Bank of America needs you to not take what they teach you about the bank and go start your own bank, because then you become competition. So they need you to stay with the bank and continue to make the bank rich, as opposed to going and taking their information that they taught you, their intellectual property, creating your own bank and competing against that bank. The collective needs you to stay in the collective to make the collective great. Because if you leave the collective and start your own, now you're competition, now you're the enemy. That's kind of the point. So you have to kind of watch out for stuff like that, because the way that you're programmed and trained from birth, sitting in a classroom and you have one teacher or maybe two walking around teaching people stuff, being the position of authority, that type of training model is associated to one or a few people controlling the masses, like the government, church. The best way to control the masses is by training them from birth to be used to taking information, or used to rules, or used to laws. The Black Balance Network. The Black Balance Network is a cooperative of Black content creators that provide opinions and commentary. We're all about supporting the individual, collective, and community, as well as supporting businesses and ideas to the grassroots level. The group includes Business Minded Talk, D. Durrell, Faith, Ray Ray the Awareness Channel, and the Screen Learning Channel. Be sure to check us out, and we look forward to providing you with great content.